Good evening, Lloyd. I'm so sorry that I can't be with you this evening. I know it's a very special occasion, but we have a family matter I have to deal with out of the country, so I'm going to be thousands of miles away from you as you view this on Saturday the 19th. I want to thank CDS, and especially Dawn Hall, for making it possible for me to be with you by video, even though I can't physically be present. I was asked to comment a bit on the early days of our organ procurement agency in North Carolina. And of course I'm glad to do that. In those earliest days, when Del Stickle did the first kidney transplant at Duke in 1965, we only used living related donors. So there really wasn't much need for an organ procurement agency. However, as the brain death law was adopted in North Carolina and cadaver deceased donors were used for the first time, suddenly we needed a new group of people who were capable of going away from the universities and procuring the essential kidneys for transplant. And shortly after that, Stan Mandel started to do kidney transplants over at UNC in Chapel Hill. So we had need for a true organ procurement agency, and that's how the Duke-UNC Organ Procurement Agency was first established. It was one or two people, first Mike Phillips, then Corbin Peterson and Brenda, who did the organ procurement for both institutions. And that was a big deal, because you know from basketball season, there's a little bit of rivalry between Duke and UNC. Excuse me. But that rivalry was overcome by the personal relationships between Stan Mandel and Bill Finn at UNC and Del Stickle and me at Duke. And so we got along beautifully well. However, there were some increasing problems. In addition to the institutional rivalries, there was the matter of professional interests. Some of our colleagues in the universities thought we were vultures circling the ICUs looking for brain-dead donors. And that didn't go over very well with families. And we weren't always the best at explaining brain death to families and simultaneously asking for organ donation. We seemed to have a conflict of interest. The increasing complexity of transplantation was another factor. We weren't just using ice preservation any longer. Suddenly perfusion pumps came into existence, and we need more technically qualified people to do the organ procurement and preservation. For all these reasons, Stan Mandel and I realized that we needed to have an institution not associated with the university, whose sole responsibility would be organ procurement. We invited our colleagues at ECU and Bowman Gray to join us in this effort. It wasn't always easy. Although Duke and UNC had a long history of working together in organ procurement, it wasn't necessarily true for ECU. And Frank Thomas, who was the transplant surgeon down there, had grave doubts about the advisability of creating a larger regional organ procurement agency. But we were lucky. Ben Weaver, in the administration there, understood the need for an independent organ procurement organization. And he represented ECU in those early negotiations to create what became COPA, the Carolina Organ Procurement Agency, that worked for all institutions, not just for one or two. The other great thing that Ben Weaver brought to COPA was a young CPA, who he knew very well, named Lloyd Jordan. Lloyd Jordan was brought on excuse me, as our first financial officer. And he did a wonderful job. He was already certified as a CPA, and he understood the language of Medicare and healthcare financing administration, something that we surgeons didn't know anything about. Lloyd turned out to be a wonderful finance director. So in fact, when we needed a new executive director, we selected Lloyd Jordan as the executive director of COPA. And the rest is really history. Lloyd has done a fantastic job of not only growing COPA, but allowing it to change as transplantation changed. Lloyd saw that multi-organ transplantation was the future, and he prepared COPA to be able to handle livers, then hearts, lungs, pancreas, intestines, and now even hand transplants. He made a flexible organization with huge capability, and he spread it over most of the state of North Carolina. It took him 10 years to get Bowman Gray and the Baptist Hospital System to agree to join the Carolina Organ Procurement Agency. But when he did, we provided organ procurement services for most of the state of North Carolina, with the exception of the Charlotte area.